Alam sa ating mga kababayan, ang Department of Health po kasama po ng ating mga eksperto ay naninindigan sa ating posisyon na ang mask po ay still valuable in our response.
The Interior Department says it does not recognize the executive order issued by Cebu Governor Gwen Garcia lifting the face mask requirement in well-ventilated and open areas in the province.
On the other hand, though, Dr. Mary Jane Loreche of the DOH Region 7 said they have no issue with the relaxed mask mandate.
Nung nilabas po yan ng ating governor, I am very pretty sure na ito ay kanyang pinag-isipang mabuti base again on our data on the ground.
Cebu Governor Gwen Garcia announced that the wearing of face masks outdoors in Cebu is now optional. The government, however, does not approve. Both the Health Department and the DILG are saying they were not informed or consulted on this decision. Can they stop the Cebu governor from implementing this? And while on the topic, if Cebu is ready, is the whole country ready to take off the mask? We discuss in this episode of The Chiefs. Welcome to The Chiefs. Ako po si Robbie Alampay at kasama natin from Manila online, Ami Pamintuan of the Philippine Star, and in Quezon City, Lucy Cruz Valdez of News 5. Mamaya po sasamahan din tayo ni Ed Lingao dito sa studio. Chiefs, happy Friday!
Happy Friday!
Happy Friday! Happy weekend!
Ika nga ni Ed, 2 araw na lang, Monday na ulit. Something to look forward to. What news will tide us over the weekend, Ami?
Yung mga bumisita uli kay President-elect Bongbong Marcos, one of them the representative of the United Nations, at sinabi niya na nirespetohin ng administration niya ang human rights, they will uphold even in the conduct of the war on drugs. So, something to watch out for, di ba?
Oh, in fact, I think the words were high-level accountability on human rights issues, something that incoming President Bongbong Marcos supposedly committed to. Ano pang ibang mga minomonitor nyo? Ikaw, LCV, ano namomonitor sa balita?
Well, presyo pa rin. Inabangan ng lahat. Kung tataas talaga yung gasolina ulit next week, di ba?
Oh.
Of course, that's not good news over the weekend. Kasi, pero yun na nga, I think we're still on that. And then yung transport, di ba, hanggang ngayon, kawawa talaga yung commuter. Yun pa rin ang binabantayan.
To that point, merong good news for civil servants, di ba? Mga public employees natin. Hopefully,
ayan ang segue mo.
Oo, may bagong, may regulation, may lumabas na ngayon, flexi time. I think all of us, private sector, government sector, but people are waiting for the guidelines on this. And tamang-tama, joining us today is Attorney Eileen Lourdes Lizada of the Civil Service Commission. Good evening and welcome back to the Chiefs, Attorney Lizada.
Good evening,
Good evening po. Good evening, Sir Robbie, Ma'am Ami, and Ma'am Lucy. And to everyone who's listening, magandang gabi po and watching. Magandang gabi.
Magandang gabi po. Now, ulitin natin, yung pag-uusapan natin, government employees muna, but we may pick up some lessons here, also for the private sector, looking at how we get employees back, how flexi time, and so on. Attorney Lizada, let me start with that. Open-ended question lang. How will this work for our government employees? Itong flexi time at saka work from home, hybrid, ano bang gagawin natin?
Itong resolution natin po na resolution number 2200209, which will be effective by June 15. The title is Policies on Flexible Work Arrangement in the Government. This allows the government sector to be more agile, to be more responsive, not only during times of pandemic, but all kinds of disasters, man-made, natural calamity. So we have seen how this has affected the 1.7 million HR throughout the country. So during the time of the pandemic, nag-issue po kami ng 2 MCs. But these two MCs would only be in operation during the time of the declaration of the state of national emergency, which is until September 2022 or until earlier or if earlier revoked. So how do we move now? Moving forward, how do we move now? Will we be issuing guidance again pag may nangyari po? So there is now an automatic default for the government sector. So we have the flexi workplace. Dati po kasi work from home. Now we have the flexi workplace. And when we say flexi workplace, we do not only talk about work from home. We talk about work from satellite office. We talk about work from another fixed place. This is over and above the 4-day compressed work week, the skeleton workforce, the work shifting, the flexi time, which allows government employees and officials to enter anytime between 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. as long as the core working hours of 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Is observed. And then one good thing about this is that the heads of agencies may now, with consultation from the employees, their unions, their rank and file, pwede na hong ipapasok during Saturdays or Sundays ang mga empleyado ng gobyerno if they think, one, they have backlog, or two, if marami pa hong pila. So this gives the public more transacting time with the government sector. So, and we have also placed the daylight saving time dito po if there is a declaration for DST. So we have anticipated and several factors for this, and we have consulted members of academia. This is how, more or less, this is 2 years in the making. We have consulted the Ateneo School of Governance and De La Salle University, Pambansang Siwaan sa Kabuhayan at PAP-UNLAD. And then we have Development Academy of the Philippines. We consulted with DBM, NPC, National Privacy Commission, MMDA, DICT. So they give the respective inputs. We place them inside for the safety nets of all of these flexible work arrangements for the government. We know that government cannot stop, put on hold, because kailangan hong magtrabaho ang gobyerno. We cannot put public service on hold. But while we take care of the public, we likewise have to take care of those who are serving the public. That's why we came out with these flexible work arrangements po.
Ayan nga yung tinatanong, yung one of the concerns is kapag naging flexible daw, baka daw bumaba yung quality ng service sa maraming agencies. How do you address those concerns?
Okay. When we issued this resolution, this is not automatic. All the agencies, all government agencies must craft their respective internal policies, and not all functions or tasks can be brought home. Depende po yan sa trabaho. So, frontline services, hindi ho pwede. So example, evaluation and formulation of accounting, auditing, and management control systems, recording, examination, and interpretation of financial records and reports, research, formulation of policies, project work. So more or less those that rely on the net. But if you are with the transacting public, ay hindi ho talaga work from home yun. Work from home, this is only within the Philippines.
Okay.
Opo, on-site. This is only within the Philippines. Hindi ho nyo sasabihin, sige, mag-Hong Kong muna, kung mag-abroad ako, tapos doon ako mag-work from home. Hindi ho pwede yun. So, mag-vacation leave ho kayo. Do not use this as an excuse to further yung mga bakasyon ninyo, because this is only intended for functions or tasks na pwede hong output-based. That's our operative term, output-based. So, if you are in research and in your office, kasi kami sa gobyerno, we have our IPCR, yung aming individual performance and competence review. So, rating. So, the IPCR of each employee comprises the OPCR, which is the office. No? So, if your target na nasa opisina ka, let's say ay 10 per month or 10 per week, kung nasa bahay ka, siguro naman, dapat i-increase yan. Kasi hindi ka na nga magpo-commute, you save sa time in commute. It has to be studied. And anong functions ang pwede? What CSC is doing is that we are only providing options. So if you are unable to deliver, then the next time that you request for work from home, pwede hong deny na yung request ninyong to work from home.
Paano po yung mga work tools? Halimbawa, computer, sino po magpo-provide nun? Tapos, internet, yung
May
load.
subsidy ba?
Siyempre,
Kabayan.
kailangan silang malakas na internet connection, di ba?
Kailangan naka-aircon.
Pero,
Kailangan naka-aircon sa bahay.
Isa
Tama
pa
ho,
yan. Sorry. Paano po yung work setup sa bahay? Sino pong mananagot doon? Tsaka may charging ba yun? Or I just wonder how that will pan out.
It's part of the support system po. Nandyan ho yun. So it can be taken up and be shouldered by the agency concerned. So subject, kaya nga meron ho ding we consulted COA on this as well. So para wala ho tayong mga disallowances. It says they're subject to budgeting rules, auditing rules and guidance po. No? So may parameters po. And then that's why we consulted the ICT and National Privacy Commission regarding the laptops kasi meron ho dapat may mga declaration or undertaking of confidentiality. So all of these factors are in place in the policy because ang ating trabaho ay dadalhin sa bahay, so dapat may mga undertaking ho tayo ng confidentiality to protect the whole integrity of yung work natin na inaayos ho, na ginagawa ho natin sa bahay. So meron ho mga support mechanisms po regarding the laptops as well and yung mga internet po. Kasi may isang opisina, pinareport niya ho lahat ng mga empleyado, 100%. Pero pagdating doon, biglang down yung kanilang internet. So bumagal. So doon ho sila nakaisip, sige, ang iba sa inyo ay ganito, ang iba, sige. So they started adopting other alternative work arrangements po during that time.
So, I mean, sundan ko lang po yung tanong ni Lucy, doon sa laptop specifically. So, they will have to be using government software and the security infrastructure and so on. But yung hardware mismo, yung laptop, KKB yan o subsidized or they're getting it officially from the office? Paano po yun?
Okay. So when we do this po, ang covered po nito ay yung mga plantilla positions. Karamihan po sa amin ay may mga, especially those who are doing research, karamihan po sa amin ay may mga PCs or laptops. So naka-MR po na rin yan sa amin. When you say MR, naka-memorandum receipt. So we have these mga serial numbers and all of these po, may mga acknowledgement receipts kami. So all of these like what I'm using now sa inyo, this is a government-issued laptop and I am in my home. And our central office may access po siya sa aking laptop to check on my laptop as well. So we have there are safety nets placed Sir Robbie doon sa mga may mga laptops and PCs. Pero yung sasabihin mong mag-work from home ka, tas wala kang laptop or PC. So pag-uusapan ng supervisor yon. So ibig sabihin, are we going to purchase? O ano bang gagawin? But so maybe, because this is the call of the head of agency, based on, let's say, the employee requesting, and then the supervisor, uusap po muna sila, and then the supervisor will assess, review, evaluate, and then i-recommend na. So maybe the office can say na, okay, let us try with this division first. O sige, ito muna ang pwede natin i-pilot for work from home or work from satellite office. And then let's see kung ano ang output nila para hindi ho lahat ang ating gagawin. So we can do a pilot in your respective offices. So because this is something new sa gobyerno po, no? And for this, we are also encouraging po, no? That's why we met with the ICT. This will also encourage agencies to adopt the information and communications technology enabled work and relevant tasks that can be performed remotely. So it's high time really we transform to digital transformation ho tayo mga government agencies para din yung transacting public. Kung kaya ho natin ayusin na in their respective homes, kaya ho nilang mag-transact with the government agencies well and good para lesser ho yung mga pila rin sa ating mga opisina.
Attorney, may estimate ba kayo? Parang marami-rami ang mga hindi kasama, no? Hindi covered. Sabi niyo yung mga direct transactions with the public. May estimate ba kayo kung mga ilang percentage kaya yung covered niyang order?
Right now, ma'am, we do not have it, but when they make their respective internal policies, they will be submitting it to the regional offices of the CSC. And then from there, probably we can report back sa inyo po, no, kung ilan ang nag-avail. Kasi hindi naman kailangan nilang i-avail ito. This is here. If you want to use it, go ahead. So, para, let's say, sa sinasabi natin, mataas ang presyo ng gasolina. O, sige. O, yung iba ngayon, o sige, para makatipid tayo, o ganito, ito ang gagawin natin. So, government is also trying to find ways, no, para matugunan yung, while we serve the public, also we need to also do some cost cutting po.
I want to understand because sabi nyo nga po, matagal niyo nang kinusulta to sa iba-ibang mga institutions din, both sa private, academic, and hindi lang to biglaan, matagal na, gaya po ng nabanggit na matagal nang pinag-aaralan. I'm just wondering about your studies. Do they show what the potential impact is just for the employees and for that matter, for everybody else in terms of traffic and mobility? For example, nabanggit niyo po kanina, 1.7 million civil servants throughout the country. Once ma-implement po natin po ito, meron po ba tayong idea? Kasi I'm imagining 1.7 million people making that commute every single day. By how much does that number come down? Do we have any idea?
Are we talking about for the fuel, Sir Robbie?
Hindi, sa fuel, sa any metrics just to show that, this is going to be the real impact on the human level and on the societal level.
Okay, I'm trying to look for my other folder kasi meron akong ginawang survey yung DAP, and during the time of the pandemic, when other government agencies were doing alternative work arrangements, meaning the only one that was available, I work from home, and based on the survey conducted by the DAP po, positive naman po yung work from home kasi mas marami ho silang output, and this was more on mga research based. Yung mga output based po, I don't have the numbers right now, the percentage, but meron hong ginawang survey po yung DAP during the time ng pandemic. It was a survey covering, if I'm not mistaken, 2 months po.
So do you see this as something that will probably be the norm already, and that there will be more and more government employees? For the private sector, that certainly looks like, it's beginning to happen, and it certainly looks like the future. No, but do you see the same for government?
This is our answer to the new normal. Considering let me give some examples. Your home is all right, safe, but your office is in another place, and you have to pass an area na naka-lockdown, na hindi ka pwedeng dumaan. So these are experiences and shared to us during that time. That's why we incorporated it here as well. So if you are going to pass through an area merong infectious disease or merong mga lockdown, so you may work from home. Otherwise, kasi the default is, sige, always report for work, report to the office. Pero nahihirapan yung kawani ng gobyerno. One, walang masakyan. So paano gagawin? Let's say kung wala silang shuttle buses. So this is our answer to the new normal. But as we say, everything may still be reviewed. But sa ngayon as we see it and as studied, we will be able to proceed once we have feedback from other government agencies. But so far, ang nakukuha naman namin ay positive feedback po sa ngayon. But we will see how they will make their internal policies po, especially the ones na pinapareport on a Saturday or on a Sunday para to cover up sa kanilang, to catch up on their backlog, or yung kanilang mga opisina ay mahahaba ho yung mga pila, so we can have more time for the transacting public to finish their respective transactions po sa gobyerno.
Meron ba kayong balak na i-institutionalize yung weekend public services? Kahit sa mga frontline lang, yung mga licensing kaya, ganon.
Ma'am, it's already here. So we are institutionalizing this. Now, it's up to the head of agency to adopt it. Kasi ang kami nga is, the heads of agencies would know that, let's say, for a certain period, ma'am, I mean, kasi for like payment of taxes, payment of ganito, may certain period do sila, di ba? So maybe they can say, oh sige, during this time, 1 month tayo, Saturday, Sunday, present tayo. Kasi may compensatory time off naman po. So it's not, it doesn't mean na Saturday, Sunday, the whole year, 300, hindi naman ho. So let's say, oh sige, for 2 months, Saturday, Sunday, report tayo dito kasi kinakailangan tayo ng taong bayan kasi ito yung peak na pag-file ng taxes, or ito yung sa alam natin yung sa mga OWA or sa SSS or yung sa PSA, ang daming humingi ng mga certificates or yung mga sa PRC. So you now have an agile HR.
Ma'am, yung gaya po ng
Do
sabi
you
natin,
have a system in place to make sure that attendance is accurately and faithfully checked? For example, time in, time out. Are we sure that government employees are not doing other things within the work hours? And for that matter, dun sa mga nag-overtime, natitiyak ba na nare-record naman yun? Is there a system in place that makes sure that that's recorded accurately?
Para hindi ho maabuso, may mga parameters po na nilagay ho din tayo sa kanila. So, based sa parameter set in the policy, titingnan at imo-monitor po ng HR, ng agency, kung ginagawa ba talaga ng official or employees yung dapat nilang gawin. So, that's why it is really important na meron ho silang polisiya. Kasi in the policy, like we have, like what we're doing now, wala akong virtual background. Pwede nyo hong ilagay yan sa inyong policy, internal policy. So, we will have video conferencing every so and so. And then see, kung nasa bahay ba talaga siya or in the place na sinasabi nila. So, wag nyo lagyan ng virtual background or meron kayong monitoring. Like, let's say, alam nyo nasa bahay sila. So, paminsan, you do rovings or you do spot checkings on your employees para makita ho ninyo. So, it really depends on kung ano yung sistemang i-adapt nila. But we have placed po, no, in the policy how they can. Kasi since it is output-based, may monitoring tool or may monitoring scheme na pwede hong gawin based ho doon sa kanilang dinadala pa uwi na trabaho. So sa let's say when you say program research or doon sa mga other paperworks po, no. So the supervisor would know ano yung dating sa IPCR niya, ano yung target niya dati. And then on time ba siya, on schedule ba siya. So diyan mo papasok yung will you require a daily submission of report or a weekly submission of report or a monthly submission of report sa inyong mga empleyado na pinaka-work from home ho ninyo. So it is output-based more or less.
Ma'am, gaya po na sabi natin, interesado dito, hindi lang public sector, pati private sector. We're keen to know not just the lessons but also the insights. I'm curious about that DAP study na nabanggit nyo. So among other things, the DAP study shows efficiency goes up when you allow for these considerations for our employees. What about impact sa lifestyle at saka sa mga savings? Hindi lang sa oras, sa pera mismo. Tumataas ba ang take home nila? You don't have to spend for transport, you don't have to spend for food. What are the impacts on the lifestyle that are also on the positive side for this scheme?
I would really like to stress on the mental health and work-life balance and wellness of the employees kasi during the past 2 years, grabe din ho yung pinagdadaanan ng kawani ng gobyerno. Ang iba ko, may marami hong mayroong mga, it's not only in the private sector, but imagine all those who were told to report for work, especially yung mga frontliners natin, and no choice, di ba po? But yung mental health nila, but this one really po, this policy, we are able to provide reasonable work arrangements po, no, for our senior citizens, for the nursing mothers, for our pregnant women, for those with comorbidity. So, meron ho, now there is a reasonable work arrangement for them. And that's why I say it's really important when we talk about the mental health and wellness, work-life balance ng mga empleyado ng gobyerno. Because if you know that somehow your welfare is protected, that you are secure, na alam mo, it's a space, that you have a workspace, a safe workspace, then it also contributes to your element that you are able to deliver well. So sa savings po, I would say meron po. And family life also, maganda rin ho. So it's really a balance of our primordial consideration is the public, the transacting public. But in doing so, we also have to take care of our own, the HR po, because we cannot afford to stop. Government cannot stop public service. We must deliver.
You will be launching on June 15. Wala bang resistance from the economic team? Kasi gusto nga nilang ibalik na yung face-to-face para nga magbali ka na daw sa labas yung mga tao and consumption can be stimulated. Wala ba sa kanilang pushback?
So far, wala naman ho kaming naririnig, ma'am. Wala pa rin ho kaming natatanggap na pushback from them. But if they have, then maybe pwede ho namin pakinggan kung ano ho yun, and then we will be able to talk. But for this flexible work arrangement, we need to come up with something more formal, more solid, so that this government, our government, will have a default for any possibility, we have to have our foresight. We have to know about ano pa pala ang pwedeng mangyari, no? Kasi hindi pwedeng lahat tayo nasa bahay pagkatapos ang gobyerno ano nang mangyayari. So now, sige, in case of calamity, sige, Team A, skeleton workforce na kayo, o kayo work sa satellite office, so madali na ho. You don't have to wait the declaration ng LGU. You don't have to wait for the declaration ng head office nyo. The regional offices, the heads of offices in the regions may already adopt the flexible work arrangement as long as they have that internal policy already. So mas madali hong to shift.
Ma'am, nabanggit niyo po kanina, these flexible work arrangements is not necessarily limited to work from home. Nabanggit niyo, pwedeng may satellite centers. Yung satellite workspaces, how does that work? Are these designated official satellite workspaces, or per department, per unit, they are also free to, work out on their own with their own employees? Na, sige, satellite office natin yung cafe doon sa malapit sa north and so on.
Work from satellite office is a work arrangement where instead of reporting to their office, report for work at their agency satellite office near their place of residence, central, other regional office or field office. Example po, yung mga LTO, yung mga DNR, di ba, we have satellite offices or regional offices. So if kaya ho nung trabaho nila in their satellite office because they need some of the resources in the satellite office na hindi sa central office, so you declag pa rin, di ba ho? You declag pa rin yung mga tao doon sa Metro Manila. So you go to the regional office, and it does not mean it is forever. Kasi pwede ho naman, sige, 1 month, 2 months ako doon. O sige, ano ang gagawin mo? Ano ang output mo dyan? So pwede hong pag-usapan, Sir Robbie, when we talk about satellite office. And I'd like to stress also, work from another fixed place. Work from another fixed place. Kasi paminsan yung bahay natin or yung home ay mahina ho yung signal ng internet or wala tayong satellite office. Work from another fixed place can be agreed by management po at saka yung empleyado, provided it is within the Philippines and it is done at a place conducive for productive work and efficient performance of official duties and responsibilities other than their home or residence or satellite office. Hindi ho pwedeng Friday ngayon, gusto ko mag-Boracay bukas. Sige, bukas, work from another
Conducive
place
doon.
ako.
Conducive doon, ma'am. Si Lucy will attest to that. Conducive doon.
Hindi niya pumapasok pag nagmamasa.
Yun ho, conducive.
Hindi, pero ma'am, linawin ko lang,
Juicy mo yun sa
linawin ko lang po because we have a lot of civil servants coming into Metro Manila. We know that a lot of them are in Cavite, Bulacan, as far as Pampanga. So we're saying that part of the satellite arrangements can be you work in the regional office or the provincial
Yes.
office in your area. Pwede yung ganun.
Yes. Opo. Mas malapit ka pa sa pamilya nyo, di ba? So, kung kaya naman ang trabaho mo doon, why not? And basta maayos po ang pagka-plansa, yung pagka-agree, yung agreement ninyo. So, it's very important that there is an internal policy po ng ahensya ng gobyerno. We have to stress that.
Okay. Ma'am, last question. Yung media po, hindi po public sector yan, ano? Yung media. Kasi merong ibang media, sinabihan na, hindi na work from home, pumasok na kayo sa studio, wala pa rin po sa studio, ma'am.
Gap na raw, uy, gap na. Gap na.
Okay. Attorney Lisada, maraming salamat po. At Attorney Eileen Lourdes Lisada of the Civil Service Commission. Ma'am, maraming salamat po.
Maraming
Thank you,
salamat
Attorney.
din po.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you po.
Please stay with us. The Chiefs will be right back. Welcome back, the Chiefs here on One News. Now joining us, infectious disease expert Dr. Ronjin Solante. Good evening. Welcome back, the Chiefs, Dr. Solante.
Good evening, Doc.
Hi, Robbie.
Doc.
Good evening.
And
Good evening, Ami and Lucy.
Doc, para sa inyo, dumating na rin si Ed Lingao at ang unang tanong manggagaling kay Ed Lingao.
Para lang sa'yo, Doc. Well, Doc, some pushback coming from the Cebu LGU. I'm sure you've heard about it.
Yun lang nga.
Merong order na si Governor Garcia na hindi na required. In other words, optional na yung mask wearing outdoors. As an infectious disease expert, what do you think of that?
Well, this is not the time to really lift the mandate on masks, even if it's outdoor, no? And we have discussed that a lot with other experts that even if the cases are still low, there are parameters that we need to check, no? Parang check box. One, vaccination rate. Second, new variants. What worries us a lot is the variants of concern. Now, if you look at the current data now in US, the B4 and the B5 is pushing the BA2.1, 2.1. So which means that because of the high transmissibility of these two variants, there's a possibility that it can overtake BA2.1, 2.1. And we have these variants already here in the Philippines. It's just that we don't know how the extent of the local transmission.
Pero ang sinasabi nga niya bakit daw nung eleksyon, dikit-dikit na mga tao at karamihan naman, wala naman daw nag-i-enforce na nung masking, wala naman daw naging malaking surge.
Well, that's a good point, Lucy, no? Now, during the time of the election, I still feel that we don't have yet the variants, this type of the variants, the B4 and the B5, no? And most likely at that time also, we still have a very good immunity. The prediction that by July or August, where a lot of us, especially those who did not have the booster, will have a significant waning is something that we have to monitor, no? Because with waning immunity, we know that Omicron can make us highly vulnerable even with symptomatic infection.
Pero Doc, of course, we're talking here about Cebu Province. We're not talking about Cebu City. So, ibang-iba yung population density in Cebu Province versus yung Cebu City. In fact, Cebu City and Mandaue cities, the mayors have decided not to obey Governor Garcia's order making optional yung wearing ng face masks.
Ed, no, let's take a look at the socio-economic geographical of Cebu. A lot of people from the province will go to the city, and vice versa. Some of them are working in the province and goes to the Cebu city. Now, if there is ongoing transmission because you lift the mask in the province and then they go to Cebu city, then that's something of a problem in Cebu city, even if they have already implemented the mandate of the mask. Okay, so there is no definite barrier by which a person cannot go because I am in the province and I cannot go to Cebu city because I prefer not wearing a face mask. I think it should be universal. Kung ano man yung pinatutupad sa isang city, it should be the whole of the province and even the whole of the nation. Kasi nandito pa tayo ngayon sa public health emergency.
Well, I think it cannot be denied that part of the reason why people feel the masks should not be mandated is also because in many other countries, it's really not mandated. And in fact, there are studies, at least that are being quoted by officials in other countries, that say that the masks are really not as helpful as it's touted to be. Your thoughts on that?
I don't agree with that, no? Because in countries where the mask mandate was lifted earlier and with the variants of concern, there really was uptick of the cases. Remember, the mask is our last defense against barrier against this virus, especially with this highly transmissible virus. Even if we took out our vaccination rate, sige, vulnerable na tayo, hindi tayo nagpabakuna ng booster, na meron na tayong waning immunity. But at least, we maintain that barrier against transmission, even in an outdoor, because we just want to make it simple. Build that immunity by that barrier, regardless of the booster status.
Is there another?
Well, I'm talking about the
any
US,
additional...
for example. Wala nang nagmamask doon, no? And from all appearances, they look normal.
Yes, ganito yan.
Ganito yan.
Lucy.
Yeah.
Okay, ganito yan. As we always want to emphasize, no, mga expert, we cannot compare ourselves with other countries. Okay, US lifted their mask mandate, especially in outdoor. But do you know what's the priority now of the Biden administration? They're holding up a lot of this Paxlovid because they are getting ready that this drug should be available because it has been proven to prevent severe disease. So do we have that strategy here in the Philippines? It's like 20,000. The Paxlovid is 20,000, 10,000 to 20,000 one course lang. Doon sa kanila, libre, mayaman sila. If we have that armamentarium, no, if we have that armamentarium in our hand and the government is giving it free, ako wala akong problema, maski magtanggalan tayo ng mask ngayon. Okay lang sa akin because we know that this can be mild and we have medications to access to prevent severe disease.
Doc, itong optional mask policy, is there any additional risk or aggravating factor in the fact that Cebu is also an international gateway? In fact, the governor has been very explicit about that we also want to do this to help the tourism back, not just in the city and the province, but also the rest of the country. What particular implications are there that this policy is now going to be implemented in Cebu, where you have a lot of internationals coming in as well?
Well, there are possibilities there that there are those that might afraid to travel to Cebu because of that mandate. And the other extreme there is that, mas okay dito sa Cebu, wala na palang mask, no? we can go there. Mas pupuntahan natin to. So those are the two opposite possibilities, no? Pero ang point ko kasi dito, Robbie, no? We want to enhance the economy, no? And sa tingin ko, ano ba ang problema sa pagbamas in terms of the economy? Nag-open up na nga tayo, 100% na yung capacity. And we haven't yet mandated the booster because ayaw natin din ma-derail ang mobility and ang mga business sector. But ang sabi lang namin, mask na lang, health protocol, we can emphasize that. And until such time, wala na tayong variants of concern. Probably that's the time that we can allow, and we can allow the mask mandate lifted, especially outdoor.
So yun yung hintay natin, mawala yung mga subvariants. Kasi yun ang sinabi din nila sa Cebu eh. Kailan pa ba mawawala tong masking na to?
Yun nga.
Papagod na daw sila. So yun ba yung kondisyon? Yun ba yung kondisyon na the subvariants and
Yes, I mean, no, you have a point there. Pero ang paniwala ko dyan, bakit ba tayo nagmamadali magtatanggalan ng face mask? I mean, the science tells us that's the barrier against this highly transmissible infection. Sige, we can allow, wag na kayong mapabooster. Alam naman natin, talagang nag-stagnate na ang booster uptake natin. But at this point in time, let's have the health protocol maintained.
Okay.
Kasi ang hirap din talaga, Dok, nang nakamask ka. Lalo na sa init ng panahon. No, I'm just being realistic. No, when you're in a car and it's very, very hot, but even the aircon is having a hard time cooling you down, and you're wearing a mask, talaga ang hirap huminga. So I can also imagine why some people, even though they do appreciate, when we go to hospitals, I think there's no issue. We really we put on a mask out of sheer hypochondria or paranoia. But when you're in your car and it's very, very hot and you're driving, it's really very hard, even to the point of being I mean, it's a distraction to me to be wearing a mask. Hirap. So will we ever, I guess the question is, when will we get to that point where we can really safely say, okay na kahit di kayo mag-mask?
Okay, so siguro importante pa rin, no? In fact, sa mga data ngayon, even in other countries, the policy should be formulated based on real-world evidence in terms of the variants of concern. How is it now in your country? Ang problema kasi natin ngayon, we don't have that real-time data on variants of concern. Nakikita nyo yung mga inireport ng Philippine Genome Center. That's like 2 weeks ago, no?
Yeah.
So in other well-developed countries, that's why US, UK, they can easily say, mag-lift tayo ng mask ngayon because most of our variants of concern now are the B1 or the B2. And our data is telling us, if you have the B2 here in our setting, the vaccine effectiveness has been maintained. Walang pumapasok sa hospital. Ganyang mga paraan, we can be guided, no? But there are a lot of unknowns in our setting. Hindi real-time ang variants of concern surveillance. Pangalawa, mababa ang booster coverage natin, no? The other uptake, kung mataas lang yung booster uptake natin, I think our cases now will really be lower than what we have.
Speaking of which, nabanggit, I want to get back to what you said kanina about Paxlovid and maybe for that matter, Molnupiravir. Sabi nyo nga po, kung naka-stockpile yan at saka accessible at affordable sa maraming tao, then maybe that helps us also. But what is the situation? Give us a more complete overview on the situation for these antivirals in the Philippines.
It's still out of pocket. It's not readily available because it's under an EUA, so which means you need to go to a hospital, you need a prescription of a doctor. And ang dito, Robbie, napakamahal talaga. And a lot of times when we prescribe this, yung sa mga ordinary citizen, sasabihin na lang nila, Dok, ang mahal pala talaga nito, pwede na lang kaming mag-isolate. And these are the vulnerable population, ha? These are the 60 years old, those with comorbidities, and it's not so accessible. You need to look for a hospital that it is available because right now, yung Paxlovid ng Pfizer is not yet available in the Philippines. It's the generic formulation of the Paxlovid that's available.
And even that is not accessible at this. Even the generic is hard to come by.
Yes, Robbie. 8,000, 10,000. Ordinary Filipino working 700, 800 a day. How can you afford that one? No? And that's why when we move forward with this pandemic, there are a lot of gaps that we have to fill. If we have all those armamentarium on hand, some Asian countries, no, I had a meeting 2 nights ago with Singapore. They have opened up. Tinanggal na nila yung mask. Why? Because they have all the armamentarium. They have molnupiravir. They have Paxlovid. And these are all coming from the government. Well, mayaman sila, but we cannot afford those.
But sir, quickly lang, yung efficacy ng generic is good.
Yes, Robin, no, it's been, FDA gave an approval based on local studies in India. There were 2 to 3 studies that more or less parallels that of the Paxlovid in the US.
Doc, shift lang akong konti kasi maraming report na yung mga hospitals are becoming overwhelmed by non-COVID cases. Kumusta po sa San Lazaro Hospital? What's the situation?
Well, that's a good question, Lucy. No? Ang sa amin naman, ang tumaas ang tuberculosis at HIV. So, it's so sad to hear, no? TB, nung 2 taon na pandemic, you know what? We see patients 23 years old, 25, already with severe TB. So, ibig sabihin, hindi sila nagpa-consulta nung time ng pandemic. And unbelievable, HIV is really growing. Even with the pandemic, the cases are still high.
Pero kaya naman ng hospital, overwhelmed ba? Overflowing na raw sa ibang hospitals?
Sa ibang hospitals kasi, ang mga kaso are the non-infectious diseases like yung mga cardiovascular, tapos yung mga diabetes, no? Mga urinary tract infections, skin and soft tissue infections. And I think we would expect this one because for the past 2 years, itong mga chronic diseases na to has not been following up with their doctors, no? So talagang nag-ipon-ipon na yung problema, and this is the time that they come up with this mga problema ngayon.
Sir, well, going back to the problem of COVID and Cebu in particular, I
Robbie?
suppose it's can you hear me? Can you hear me, sir?
Yes, yes.
Yes, sir. Well, in the last 2 years kasi since we had the pandemic, we've never really resolved yung jurisdictions ng LGU versus yung national government as well as yung authority. For example, for more than a year into the pandemic, the government was using RA 11332, the law on notifiable diseases, which the DOJ secretary later on said na hindi pala applicable. So it fell back to leaving it to the LGUs to pass ordinances to enforce protocols, as we saw dun sa no vaccine, no ride policies. So dun po tayo ngayon nakabukas If the Cebu LGU again insists that their ordinances are more powerful than an IATF resolution, bitin nga yung national government. It's never been resolved.
Ed, no, ang tinitingnan ko dito, when you declare a state of public health emergency, sino ba ang masusunod? It should be the national. And health protocol is a policy of the IATF for the whole nation.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I understand, sir. Pero when it comes to enforcing the law, for example, making arrests, that was the problem of the DOJ last year. All the arrests were made ended up being dismissed. Yung violations of protocols, yung paglalarga ng walang quarantine pass, they were all mostly dismissed by the courts. And that's why Secretary Guevara in the end said na it's better to just have local ordinances passed instead of enforcing laws through IATF resolutions. And that's where we are right now. Pag binalanda ulit ng Cebu na meron kaming ordinansa, wala magagawa ng national government.
Well, I think that should be tackled at the level sa national, kung what will be the next move for that. And hindi ko rin ma-blame ang governor, no? Because I think she just wants the economy to flourish in Cebu, and I think if she think na mababa na yung kaso niya, she initiated that, no? But I was asking a lot of experts, did she consult with experts also in Cebu, especially the infectious diseases, or does she have these mga advisors, no? And we don't have knowledge on that. Kasi kung meron kang mga ganyang advisors na mga infectious disease that are also in the loop, I think it's something that it should be guided by evidence and by experts also.
Speaking of evidence, Doc, usually we always say whenever we talk to experts like you, in 2 weeks' time, we will see the impact and the implications of this decision. What do you dread to see, and what might we see that should spur a reconsideration or a continuation of this policy?
Well, they can look at it and review it again, and then ang sa akin naman, they have to have specific implementing guidelines. When you say optional, they have to mention ano ba yung optional, and they have to be specific with that, no? Like for example, no, when you say optional, you can take out your mask outdoor if you are fully vaccinated and boosted. Yun, isa yan. You can take out your mask outdoor if you are not in a public place, like a marketplace or in a terminal, like public transportation. But you cannot take off a mask if you are 60 years old and above, if you are immunocompromised, and you are unvaccinated. I think medyo klaro yan natin, no? Ang problema lang yan, how will you implement that? Kasi pag sinasabi mo optional, ang mindset ng mga tao, pwede na tayo. It's so difficult to implement such mga exceptions.
Okay, Dr. Solante, maraming salamat po.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Dr.
Good evening.
Thank you, Doc.
Okay.
Ingat po.
Thank you, Doc.
Infectious disease expert, Dr. Ronjin Solante. And that will be all for this edition of The Chiefs. We hope what was discussed here will keep the conversation going. Before we go, a reminder to our viewers, mask on, wash hands, stay safe, Philippines. I'm Robbie Alampay.
I'm Mami Pamintuan of the Philippine Star.
I'm Lucy Cruz Valdez of News 5.
I'm Ed Lingao, and we are One News.